I don't mean the women athletes. I don't mean these young girls who are being affected. I mean all these women out there, all of our feminists out there who have pushed and fought. And now, at the most obvious time, for the most common sense issue I remember in decades, they're choosing silence. Shame.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Narrative Podcast. Mike Andrews, Aaron Baer joining you today. And Aaron, you're looking a little more fit after that heavy lifting you did last week, all on your own.
Just
here.
carried this whole thing and also without a donut in here. Thanks again to Eric Tietzel for broadcasting all our production magic of having donuts in the room when we're doing this. So no donut this time, just coffee.
Wait a minute. There were donuts last week?
Indeed there was. And that was not for the podcast, but around the entire office. We always have donuts around this place. I don't know what it is. Get behind me, Satan. But yeah. And then, of course, we have Eric is on screen. And he has to tell everyone I'm sitting here with a donut. So thankfully, no donuts this time. I'm on my best behavior and just drinking more coffee.
It is true that there are some just right out there.
They're literally right there.
If you want me to hit the pause button, I'll run out and grab one real quick. But well, speaking of last week, in-depth discussion on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and just a couple of things like as we look at it that we want to go deeper on, and the school choice portion of that specifically is really, really big news.
Yeah, no, it really is, and it was something that I really want to go deeper on because in the Senate, I got to say, I'm feeling pretty optimistic that we're going to get an even stronger version of that bill out of the Senate. The conversation in the Senate right now is really good around it, and so last week, again, you can't look for any better information on that bill than Eric Tietzel at Center for Renewing America, and they're really driving the process there in Washington. And we covered a lot of ground, and one thing we talked about a little bit but didn't go deep into was the first ever national school choice program, which, for Ohio, it would be a big deal. But nationally, if you're in a state like California, if you're in a state like Washington, D.C., like New York City, and New York, rather, from the state, your hope of ever getting something like the backpack bill or universal school choice passed is very low. So having a federal program like what's been proposed in the One Big Beautiful Bill and what's being discussed as being strengthened in the Senate is incredible. So what's in there, actually, we talked a little bit about this, but didn't go too deep into it. It's not a voucher or a scholarship like we have in Ohio, but it is a tax credit, also like we have in Ohio. So for those who really pay close attention to this, you've heard ads about this here on the Narrative. We have a state tax credit that the Ohio Christian Education Network scholarship granting organization administers. So you can make up to a $750 donation to an SGO, OSEN SGO, for example, and you get a dollar for dollar tax credit back on your state income taxes if you have more than $750 in liability to the state. And then OSEN SGO turns around and takes that money and administers scholarships to kids to attend private school, in OSEN's case, Christian school. It's a tremendously successful program. To put it the other way, you're basically directing your tax dollars from, instead of going to the federal government or the state government in the OSEN SGO context, you are giving it to a Christian school.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
And I can attest, when we did our taxes this year, they gave us our bill, and I said, no, actually, I want that to go to this. And
exactly.
Made a donation that day to OSEN SGO, gave proof of that donation to my accountant, and my tax bill to Ohio went away.
Exactly. Right. It really is.
It was so simple.
Right. So it's the other way of looking at it. Like you said, it's a donation that costs you nothing. Yeah. Right. But that's just on your state income taxes. Well, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, they included this equivalent of that for the country based off of your federal income taxes, which for most of us, especially in Ohio, is the vast majority of the taxes that we're paying. And so what they passed in the House version is good, right? They established the program. It's for families are eligible to receive the scholarships if they are at 300% or below the federal poverty level. But there's some other things that were tacked onto it that we are not big fans of. And they sunset it after 4 years instead of a longer runway. There's a bunch of things in the weeds that we weren't thrilled with, but we were thrilled that we just got it in, right? This is the first. We've been working on this for years, and a lot of our national friends have been working on this for years along with us, and so we were very excited about it. Now you have people like Ted Cruz that are doing phenomenal work to really take some of these restrictions that were included in the House off. Taking off the income requirements of who can get the scholarships, right? Because you got to remember, with these tax credits, you have the givers, right? And then you have the recipients. And we want to see everyone be eligible for it. So very, very big news that this got in. This is a key promise of the Trump administration to really push school choice nationally. I think we're still years away from getting to that place where dollars are truly following the kid from the federal level, right? We're getting closer to that in Ohio. We're almost there here in Ohio, but we're still a ways away from getting that federally. This would be a huge first step, the most significant step taken on the national school choice front in our lifetimes, and pretty encouraged about where we are right now.
Yeah, it's exciting times on the education front. We did kind of an in-depth look at what it meant for the Department of Education to go away, and this is sort of step 2 of really empowering parents to make these decisions for their kids based on what's best for them.
Right, and we would be able to. The exciting thing here in Ohio is if this passes, OSA and SGO will be able to administer that scholarship as well, right? So you could go to OSA and SGO and make a contribution from your state income taxes to whatever Christian school you want. And then you could go to your federal, make a separate donation based off of your federal income taxes to also go to whatever Christian school you want. So it's really exciting what this could do, and the way, most of these Christian schools, despite what the media says, they run on razor thin margins, right? I mean, teachers start at these schools at $28,000, $30,000 a year, right? They don't make a lot of money in these schools. And so being able to even get a little bit more in to bless these teachers, to allow these schools to grow, is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, so many of them have treated working in a Christian school as a ministry, and so they've willfully left money on the table to not work in the public schools, but to work in these Christian schools. So to be able to infuse some finances to pay them more what they're worth would be a game changer for education as well. Well, as much as we're celebrating that, another issue that we're raising the alarm bell on and have been for a couple of weeks is this proposed online gambling expansion in Ohio. And I actually just got back from the state house.
I want to hear about that. We haven't really debriefed on it yet. We had a big press conference on it with pastors. How'd that go?
It was great. It was great to see so many shepherds from across the state. First of all, we're at like 130 pastors that have signed a letter that we put out, and you can find it on ccv.org. We can link to it so you can read exactly what their concerns are, and then some of the pastors, or all of the pastors who have signed on, are listed there. But to see them stand up and say, essentially, we are the ones that are administering the triage when this affects families. We've seen it firsthand. This is not the way to go for the state of Ohio, and it's being pushed by a predatory industry that wants to hurt and harm families, which are the foundation or the future of our state. Is these thriving families that they want to undermine through gambling, and you're gambling away your inheritance, you're gambling away your savings accounts, just all of these things that are degrading the strength of the family in Ohio as an attack on God's first institution that he created. To see them stand up and articulate it so well, it was a beautiful moment for the body of Christ in Ohio, truly.
And I think it's really important when you walk into these hearing rooms and they are jam-packed full of gambling lobbyists, right? That's all who's in the room, are the people that are looking to make millions, if not billions of dollars on this, right? You don't have a grassroots movement of people saying, I want to play slot machines on my iPhone, right? That doesn't exist. What you do have is you have a predatory industry coming into the State House and saying, we want to be able to target people with this, right? Now, what they do, and they show up in the State House, and they say, we're going to do this responsibly, and this is a good thing for the state. It's just free money for the state with the revenue that will come in. And the reality is, you actually look at how they structure their gaming, and we talked about this in the live stream we did. It is so targeted and strategic. And with AI now, it's so much more dangerous. And I actually, we have here, and I know we're distributing this around, one of our supporters here in Ohio got an email, a pitch email from a company called DGen, right? Which sounds like degenerative or degenerate, but it's DEGEN, saying, hey, this was the email they sent. Said, I'll keep this quick. We're building the most addictive gambling product you've never seen. Legacy casinos rent content and hope it sticks. We don't guess. Every wager trains our system. Every player gets locked in. We build games that are addictive and keep players engaged, driving higher returns. Alexander Nix, ex-Cambridge Analytica, leads our growth, weaponizing psychographic targeting to drive high profits, crypto gamblers straight into our flywheel. That's the weaponizing. And then just so what was great about this, the guy that this was sent to forwarded over to us, because they said that, basically the email ends, hey, if you're interested, let us know and we'll send you our pitch deck. And so the guy emailed us and said, hey, just want you to see this. And I said, hey, would you ask them for the pitch deck? And he said, sure, let's see. So he replies back and says, yes, I'd love to see the pitch deck. And they send over this 15-page pitch deck. And just the cover of it says, our mission is to build games designed to hook, adapt, and dominate attention, machine trained on real-time player data. We weaponize data to make games addictive. I mean, this is what the industry thrives on. And this is not what they're telling members across the street. This is not what they're telling the media, but this is what they know they need to make money off the backs of low income and hurting Ohioans.
Yeah, and this was really eye-opening to me. As I was flipping through it, I said it was disgusting, I think was the word that I used, when you see some of the language that they use and how they view people that as Christians, we need to say, no, that is somebody made in the image of God who's not to be preyed upon to this degree. But the consideration, as all of society is grappling with AI and what does it mean, to really see where this could go should scare us into saying this doesn't come into Ohio. We don't expand into Ohio, because they can very easily use their algorithms, their AI generated algorithms, and know when you're about to maybe check out and give you a win. Give you a small win to get you hooked and get you right back in.
To give you that little bit of hope to keep you on the hook and change the game. They see you respond more to these colors, to these sounds, to this format of a game, all of that kind of stuff. It's constantly evolving to keep you in this black hole and keep you from being productive, from going to work, from spending time with your family, spending time with your kids, doing things that actually help grow the state, right? So even if we want to take this out of it's wrong to prey upon poor people or people generally, just the baseline of what is actually going to help us grow the state. The revenue that's going to come from this, whatever revenue it is certainly not worth the cost. And this is one smaller gambling company, but this is what MGM Casino depends upon, right?
Absolutely.
This is what all of them depend upon, is getting you hooked and getting you to play as long as they can.
Yeah, and there's no more guessing.
Right.
There's no more guessing, because up to this point it's, well, we kind of know when people are going to... No, they're going to know because of the way that AI learns patterns and behaviors and that kind of stuff. And we need you folks. If you haven't filled out our action alert yet, we'll drop a link in the show notes. Send a message to your state legislators and tell them to stand against the proposed online gambling expansion in Ohio. This is when we need the body of Christ to stand up, and do not let this come into our state, because it is false promises. It's not just, as you said, Aaron, it's not just manufacturing money out of nowhere. This money's coming out of the pockets of the people that the state is supposed to help, and we need to keep this industry from hurting more people in our state.
And just like the transgender medicine industry a few years ago, the only people that are incentivized right now to oppose this, the only people that have the courage to oppose this, are going to be Christians. Because we're going to look at whatever money that's being promised and say it's not worth it. It's not worth the cost. This is where the body of Christ, for everyone who says Christians shouldn't be involved in politics, this is the case in point of why we need to be involved. Because if we don't stand up and speak out against this, nobody will. And
you're seeing that. You're seeing some interesting allies pop up and say, hey, we actually agree on this.
Right.
So it's a bipartisan issue if you've got that right mindset.
Right. If you start building momentum behind it. Yeah. That's right.
Well, today on the show, as far as our featured interview goes, not an interview so much as it is one of our gala speeches that we got to hear a couple weeks ago, which seems crazy. That that was at the beginning of May. We've already reached the end of May, and we haven't had an opportunity to highlight any of these yet. But Sage Steele was our guest.
Nice.
In
I was wondering which one it was
Cincinnati.
going to be. She was amazing.
Right?
Yeah, and so authentic. And I always love when a speaker comes in and they have like their design speech, and then they kind of just toss it aside and just go from the heart. And that's what she did. And she was so genuine and like you could also hear someone, it's so fascinating to see someone who saw their life going a certain way, right? Reach the top of their field and decided to walk away from it out of conscience, out of faith. And that's what you saw with Sage. And I really had to show all my restraint and not just nerding out on sports stuff with her the entire time, because I could have talked SportsCenter and NBA finals
back
and all
before
that.
SportsCenter was nothing but betting lines.
Exactly, right.
Stuff.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but she was great. I know you're going to be encouraged by her talk, and then Aaron, you got to sit down with her and do kind of a one-on-one interview at the end. It was a great night, and we're excited to be able to share that with you. So stick around. It's coming up next on The Narrative. Hey, Narrative listeners. Christians in the marketplace today face more unique and challenging threats than ever before. Businesses are following woke capitalism, chambers of commerce are beholden to social justice, and secular activists are chipping away Christians' First Amendment rights. As Ohio's only Christian Chamber of Commerce, the Christian Business Partnership stands in the gap to advocate for, to educate, and to celebrate Christian business owners. Joining the partnership also allows businesses to provide their employees with healthcare insurance, workers' compensation, and exclusive banking and educational discounts. To find out more and to join, go to cbpohio.org. That's cbpohio.org.
Thank you. I will say I kind of consider the Midwest home, even though I also consider myself homeless. It's a strange balance. I was able to speak to so many of you earlier. I'm an Army brat, so when people say, where are you from? I'm like, I don't know. Pick a place. I probably live there. But for many years, the Midwest has been home. I consider the Midwest home. I went to any Hoosiers here? Anybody? You know where that state, which direction is Indiana from here? Where am I? That way. Sure. Indiana University, I moved there you too? This is my bathroom buddy. I knew I liked you. You know what happens in the ladies' restrooms. You bond, you talk about all kinds of important things. And I went to IU, the best 5 years of my life. And gosh, that was tomorrow. 30 years ago, I graduated from Indiana University. So yes, I color my hair 100%. But my daughter and I landed here in Cincinnati just a couple of hours ago. And immediately I'm like, oh my goodness, we're back. I hadn't been back in the Midwest in a long, long time. And she hasn't spent too much time here. I'm like, the people here are different. It's just different. They actually smile. It's weird. I lived in Connecticut for 17 years, and let me tell you, the gray skies here, gray skies there are very, very different, but it feels awesome to be back here and to be home and to be around, I don't know, my people, even though we don't know each other that well, because let's just say, see this cross on my chest? I couldn't wear that for a long, long time. I wasn't ever told not to when I worked at ESPN or on network television, but it was obvious. And I did think it was important to keep some separation. Not anymore. It feels kind of cool right now to be able to wear it and to wear it proudly, whether I'm on, Fox News or Newsmax, or listen, the other people won't have me, but anyone who will have me, I wear it, and I wear it proudly because it took a long time when I was afraid to. And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight. The power of prayer, which you all are better at it than me. I grew up Catholic and a proud Catholic, and I'm still practicing to an extent, but certainly I incorporate many other things now as I've gotten older and wiser and gone through some things. But one prayer in particular was drilled into me when I was a kid, and it was so annoying. My dad graduated from West Point in 1970, and he forced us kids, I was the oldest of three, he forced us to memorize this portion of the cadet prayer. I say it, I try to incorporate it every single time I speak because it has changed my life. Do you want to do it, Quinn, my daughter? I made you memorize it. Do you want to? She's like, no, not now. I'll get you later. Help me to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with a half-truth when the whole truth can be one. The harder right versus the easier wrong. The thing that stinks is quite often we know what the right thing is. It's just a lot harder, and it's easier to take that easy road until you look in the mirror and you say, okay, I can't do this. So that prayer drove me through so much, and in particular, I'm going to go back just to when, and I'm going to try to go like 20 minutes here and then Q&A, right? Yes, Aaron? Okay, I promise. Just start throwing things if I go past 20, okay? No one's in my ear. They used to talk to me in my ear. I always had voices in my head, thanks to those people. You're not in my ear, so stay over there. September 13th, 2021. That is when I really feel like my life took a turn that I never imagined. Not only is it my mom's birthday, but I went to bed that night in tears. And praying and praying and praying, the power of prayer. The reason is because I had a choice to make the next morning. In order to keep my job, my dream job at ESPN, I had to take the COVID vaccine. Disney mandated that all Disney employees, which is ESPN and ABC as well, take the shot or you're out. And this is 2021, like we didn't know as much as we know now. Ends up, many of our gut feelings were right, just saying. Just a question, just like, wait. All it took for me was a simple, quick Google search that on average, it takes the FDA 6 to 9 years to approve a vaccine. And this is shoved down our throats in 6 months, however fast it was, very political. And I just wanted more time. I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, I don't want to be. I just wanted more time. And so my agent and my friends were like, well, just get a medical exemption. I'm like, well, but it's not what it is. Like, I don't even have a doctor. I should, but like, this isn't a medical thing. Well, just get a religious exemption. I'm like, well, it isn't even a religious exemption at that time. Now I know more about what was in that shot. A lot of us in here do as well. This is about right and wrong, and this is about principle, and this is about being forced to do something to my body that I'm not comfortable with. Just give me a minute. My body, my choice, right? When it's convenient, apparently. So I went to bed that night and prayed, and I said, God, just give me a sign. So when I wake up in the morning, because I had an appointment at the local grocery store, that's how serious this was, the grocery store to go get the shot in order to keep my job. Just give me a sign, because the choice was, get it and keep your job, or don't get it and you're fired. And I had 3 kids. At the time, one was a freshman in college, one was a senior in high school, one was a sophomore in high school, and it was all financially up to me to take care of them and everyone. So that was the option. And I said, just give me a sign. So the next morning, I just felt sick to my stomach. And I don't know that my daughter even knows this story, but I got in the shower. And the only thing I hadn't done in that house was renovate the master bathroom. You do everything else except your favorite place, right? And so there was this really ugly brown marble tile. And I'm in the shower, and I looked at this area of tile 100,000 times. And at this moment, I looked in the brown tile on the back of the shower, and I saw the outline of an angel. I couldn't make it up. I wouldn't make it up. It doesn't make sense. It's ugly brown tile. Angels are beautiful. This doesn't make sense. And at that moment, I stopped breathing almost, and I realized, to me, I took that as my sign. You're going to be okay. You have to take care of your babies. So I knew then that I was going to trust God. And I got in my car, and I drove to the grocery store, and I sat in that parking lot, and I still cried, though. I was disgusted with myself for caving, is what I thought I was doing, and I was. But I didn't think I had a choice in order to support my kids. And I know there was millions of Americans who felt the same way, and frankly, I know we need to forgive, and I'm still not quite there yet with what the government and what I deem evil people in this country and around the world did to so many of us. So I'm working on it. I'm getting better. But a lot of people were hurt. A lot of people died from that. A lot of people's hearts were broken during that time. And then I just got out of the car, and I walked in, and I sat down in the chair in the little fake pharmacy. And the nurse, or whatever she was, and she was very kind, looked at me, and my eyes were red. She said, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I'm not okay. I'm being forced to take this shot in order to keep my job, and I'm disgusted and I'm devastated. And she looked at me and she said, "This is so wrong, and I am so sorry." And she grabbed my hand, squeezed it, and then put that shot in my arm. And I swear to you, at that moment, I changed. I didn't know it then, but I changed. And then I hugged her because it wasn't her fault. She needed a job. Like, there's so many people who are doing things I didn't want to do. And I walked out and I got in my car and I sped home because, like an idiot, I had scheduled to do a podcast with a former quarterback who I talked about on TV, and he kind of sucked. The Bears, sorry, is that a bad word? Jay Cutler? Sorry. Bears, I mean, we hate the Bears here, right? I know, it's NFC, AFC, okay. I had to do his highlights a lot. They weren't good, okay? So I was like, why am I doing this podcast? Went and did it, and sat down, and I was hot, you guys. I was hot because I had just come from doing something to my body that I didn't want to do. And Jay Cutler, and I give him credit, did his homework, and he talked about some things that he knew I had spoken about that were maybe controversial in the past that we can get into another day. But in particular, I had this Band-Aid on my shoulder because I had just gotten that shot. I forgot. I really did. People later said, oh, it was a prop. I'm like, I was rushing because I had been in the parking lot crying for too long. And he asked me about the shot, and he said, what's that? And I said, well, I just did something I didn't want to do. And he said, tell me about it. And I said, listen, Disney mandated us to get a shot in order to keep our jobs, and I think it's sick, and I think it's scary for any company to force their employees to do something that they don't want to do. But I need my job, and I love my job, and I've worked my whole life to get here, and I need to support my family, so onward. And that's what I said. A week later, when the podcast came out, the phone rang and rang and rang, and it was my agent first, then it was the bosses, and long story short, I was pulled off the air and suspended for almost 2 weeks. They didn't call it a suspension because I was paid, but we have paid suspensions in sports all the time, right? I was pulled off the air, and I was told to publicly apologize, or again, I would be fired. So what do? You go, and you live in fear. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And I'm this pleaser anyway, right? That's a terrible disease to have, and I'm almost cured of that now. Once you get canceled so many times, you just realize, it's fine. I don't care. I'm still standing somehow, a little wobbly. And so I wrote up an apology, and they had to approve it, and they said, well, don't say the word Disney, just say the word company. There were lawyers everywhere, and I just was like, surviving, go. And then they had me come back to work, eventually come back to work. And then in between that time, those 2 weeks, my bosses had said, you're hated by your teammates, your peers don't like you, you've disappointed us, you don't represent us as the way that we need you to, and you need to make some apologies before you walk back in here. And I was sick to my stomach. I was scared to death. I had disappointed people. I had embarrassed people. I embarrassed myself and my family and my kids just by saying what I felt was right, but complying. I complied, didn't I? And that day, when I was walking to go to work for the first time to go back, my mom and dad had driven up from Pennsylvania. Again, this is 2021 and COVID, and we were still nervous. We didn't know. My father has not one but two kinds of cancer, and he wasn't supposed to be around me. And I had just come off of getting a terrible case of COVID while suspended because I complained about the COVID shot that was supposed to prevent me from getting COVID, right? It's great. So my mom and dad, though, it doesn't matter if you're 52 years old, my mom and dad drove up and picked their kid up off the ground because I was scared, and I had been called the worst names, and I had been canceled. And my dad said, you've got this. And the old football player and my dad, he played in Army, said, huddle up, ladies. And it was my best friend, who was my makeup artist, who fixed my face, my mom, my dad, and me. And he said, we're going to say a prayer together, the power of prayer. Those of you Catholics or who know about St. Michael the Archangel, protect us from the wickedness and snares of the devil. Rebuke him, we humbly pray. Every day from that moment on, when I came back from the suspension to the day I settled with Disney, I drove up to work in the car, put my last coat of mascara on, called my mom and dad, and every day we said that prayer. And as scared to death as I was to go in, because everybody hated me, remember? I felt like I was protected. I had a bubble around me because of that prayer, because of St. Michael the Archangel, and because of my mommy and my daddy, and knowing that I still had this dream job. And that's on me if I allow others to tear me down and to break me down, but just because I shared an opinion but still complied. The prayer is literally what got me through everything. As I went back to work, they promised me that if I apologized, that I would be fine and it would all go away. The problem is they kept taking assignments away. And so I had hosted the New York City Marathon, for instance, for years. I'd hosted the Rose Parade in Pasadena for years, and all these things I was so proud of that took a long time to get there, and they kept taking them. And I said, why? And they said, Disney's still mad at you. Disney's still mad at you. You need to just stay quiet and just do your thing, head down. And of course, what do? And then I saw my peers who went on ESPN airwaves and talked all about their opinions, about how devastated they were that Roe versus Wade was overturned and girls didn't have options to get abortions without their parents' permission. And they talked about that on NBA shows. Don't Say Gay, the alleged Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, they had a moment of silence on a women's NCAA basketball tournament game. And now it's interesting because Disney just this week announced that they are building a $10 billion theme park in UAE, where there's quite a long history of what they've done to human beings for not following whatever their rules are is devastating and disgusting. So the hypocrisy remains and is thick, and we need to continue to call that out, use our voices. But at that time, I saw my peers doing that and thought, wait a minute. They're allowed to do this on ESPN airwaves to talk about everything that wasn't sports. I was on an off day, just sharing my opinion, complying with your rules, and I'm silenced and shut down and punished, and that's the key. It's diversity, equity, inclusion. If what? If you are aligned with what those people think. And at that point, I couldn't do it anymore. And the pleaser in me, and the little girl, and the person who'd been so fearful of my own shadow and disappointing people said, enough. And I don't know. So, do you guys, any fans of The Bachelor in here? Chris Harrison, the former host of The Bachelor, a wonderful, wonderful human being, and he also got canceled during this crazy time, and he's such a great soul, and he saw what was happening. He called me. He's like, I have someone you need to talk to, and his name is Brian Friedman, and he is the best attorney in America. He was Megyn Kelly's attorney. He is currently Tucker Carlson's attorney. Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively. I mean, he will take anybody out and to support people who have been wrong. So if you say anything crazy, I have a guy for you. And Brian listened to my whole story, and I decided that this was it, and this was enough. And to continue to punish me, at the time I was the longest tenured female hosting SportsCenter, 16 years. And I will tell you this, every single day I loved it. Even with that going on, even with the chaos, I loved what I did, and that's why I felt like, wait, I have to stand up because I knew I wasn't alone. There were other people there who were also afraid. And so I decided to file a lawsuit. And the night before the lawsuit dropped, I called in the case for Quinn because she was in college, and then my two others. I spoke to each of my children separately, and I said, I'm sorry. This is coming your way, and I'm sorry. They had dealt with it in the past when I had a big mouth about random nothings, and whether it was coaches or teachers or parents, other parents who would say things to my kids about their mom. I said, please do not feel like you have to defend me because I don't want you to. What I want you to say, if anyone says anything, is everyone has a right to their opinion. That is true diversity. Yes, diversity this and your sexuality, all those things, but it begins and ends in my mind with diversity of thought. And remind the adults in the room who say something to you that you don't even agree with everything your mom says at times, but she has that right. And that's what I said to them, and I apologize for what was to come. They each responded quite differently. My son, who, as I say, is in the middle of my two psycho daughters, I love you. You're crazy. You girls are crazy. He looked at me when I was crying, and I said, I'm sorry for what's to come, but this is what the headline's probably going to be tomorrow. My son looked at me, and he said, Mom, it's about time you stood up for yourself. So, the lesson the lesson in that is what? We stay silent for so many reasons that we believe are right. To stay in the good graces of our bosses, because we need that paycheck, and because we love our job, and because we don't want to inflict pain on our children. We want to protect those around us. But what was I actually doing by staying silent? I was teaching my kids to be quiet and to shut up when it got scary. So I was doing a disservice to my kids. And they had never told me that, but he obviously had been observing that. And at that moment, through tears, and I got up to, he's 6'4", 220, this hulking kid of mine, and I knew that no matter what happened with the Walt Disney Company, you talk about David versus Goliath, they bled me dry in about 4 minutes. But no matter what happened, I knew that even if I lost to them, I already won, because my kids saw no more. No more silence. So it was the biggest blessing. And every day I went back to work and I walked in there, not without saying the prayer with my mom and dad. 3 weeks after I filed the lawsuit, I was covering the PGA Championship in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'd just gotten off the air with my awesome co-host, Matt Berry, and we were walking. I've been to 100,000 golf tournaments. I know how to act and where to walk on a golf course. Crazy things can happen on a golf course, and we were following the top group, which was Colin Morikawa, Scotty Scheffler, and John Rahm, who were kind of friends of ours as well, and that's the group you want to follow, right? So we were on the third hole, and we were, when I say way off in the left fairway, like along the rope, I couldn't have been more out of the way. And we stopped walking, and I turned towards the hole, and we were about 280 yards away in the trees, and I was just trying to find them, trying to see them teeing off. And out of nowhere, at 150 miles an hour, from 280 yards away, a ball came through the trees, direct shot on my mouth. And it hit me so hard on my teeth that it ricocheted back into the middle of the fairway. And it was so loud that they thought it hit the tree next to me. So they were like, oh, wow, lucky shot. We're going to play it from here. In the meantime, our security guard that was with us turned around and saw me. I don't know how I didn't pass out. I spun around, and I was just on my knees like this. And he looked at me, and he's like, what are you doing? And, of course, I couldn't talk. There were no teeth left. I had my hands over my mouth, and there was blood pouring out, and he said, Sage, take your hands away from your mouth, and I was afraid, and finally I did, and when he did, to see a grown man just, but I was alive. I was in shock, but I knew something had happened, and by the grace of God, you guys, just think, if I had not been looking up at that moment, if I had looked at my phone for a split second, that doesn't hit me in the mouth. It hits me here, eye, temple. At best, I have a fractured face and no eyeball, probably worse. I was okay. The guys played through. My co-host, Matt, they didn't know. My co-host, Matt, was protecting me because the cameras knew something happened, and so he was hiding me. And as I was on the ground, I will admit to you, I went, oh my goodness, of all places to be hit. 3 weeks after I filed a lawsuit, speaking out against one of the biggest companies in the history of business, I get hit in the mouth. To me, it was a message. At that moment, it was a message. Shut up. This is what you get. This is what happens when you speak up. Just go along, keep getting the paycheck, make sure everybody likes you. This is what you get. And I remember thinking specific people who were probably laughing at this and pleased that this had happened because they had said such things in the past before I got hit in the face. Ambulance came, fine. And I'm so grateful for that moment, even though it took 3 root canals, 8 new teeth. Like, it still feels crazy. You can't see the scars. I can feel them. It's fine. But, like, at that moment, I realize now, I had that thought. It was like the angel versus the devil of, be quiet. This is what you get. This is your punishment for speaking up for yourself and for others. But I feel like it was a test because on the other side was, you survived this for a reason. Now what are you going to do with it? I just didn't have any teeth. I just couldn't talk. So that moment, what a blessing. And those prayers that I said to forgive me, I'm sorry, but God was like, girlfriend, you are not even close to done. 20 days later, after we put in some temporary teeth, and I went back on TV way too soon because the pleaser in me was still like, I have to prove to them, see, I can do this, and look how tough I am. I can get hit in the face at 150 miles an hour with a golf ball, and 20 days later go on TV and walk and talk with my highlights, and I can show everybody how tough I am, and that I'm not milking an injury during a lawsuit. I'm learning. No more pleaser. But at that moment, I knew that there was more to it and that I had to continue to go. Took over a year for the lawsuit to settle. I will say that during that time, I feel like I did my best work. I don't know why. Well, I do know why now. But there was a peace about me every time I walked in there. Because the longer it went, I realized I can do this. And I can compartmentalize really well, which can be bad too, right? But I could walk in there and put the fear that Bob Iger was going to choke me out somehow when I'm live on TV. I still fear that sometimes. Or that all my friends hated me and the hate that would come everywhere. But I still did it. And I still could block it all out and tell stories and do my job to unite people, because that's what sports is supposed to be. Isn't that our job as sportscasters? Not to give our opinions on the networks about anything. What a blessing that I had been able to continue it. And the day that it settled, it was devastating. Considered a win, I guess, when Disney says, okay, we'll settle with you out of court. But most importantly, this was about the First Amendment. This was about true freedom of speech. What I learned, thanks to my brilliant attorney, is that in the state of Connecticut, of all states, it's crazy, that you can say what you want. You can even criticize your employer if you are complying with their rules. And I was. It takes a good attorney to find that out. So I had a case. That's to go back to why I sued, not because my feelings were hurt, because it was wrong. And because as we talk about the importance of what our forefathers have done to fight for us, and my grandfather, who was a Buffalo soldier, who couldn't even fight in the same cavalry as white men because of the color of his skin, all these people who have fought, and I'm going to sit here in silence and be quiet? Shame on me. So when I settled, it was devastating, but I knew there was a reason. A couple of months later, actually, I stayed there for another year to get my youngest daughter through high school. She just finished her freshman year at Ole Miss, survived. Oh, we got some rebels here, okay. But I knew I had done my job in that way. And imperfectly, moms, dads, we know, we do our absolute best, right? But I just hoped and prayed that along the way, for the mistakes that I made, that they saw that we cannot be quiet. Do we need to pick and choose? Yeah. Do we need to be careful, pick our battles? Absolutely. But how can we preach to them to stand up and be strong and be better if we choose not to ourselves just because it's uncomfortable and expensive and very, very lonely? You do find out who your friends are. And even the family members that I guess they'll always be family, but might not approve of you and therefore choose not to speak to you, choose to judge. The bitterness can come. I know you all have probably experienced that in many ways too, but I've never had more peace. It is incredible to be able to say, this is bigger than me. This is just my little story, by the way. What I have found in sharing it, even though my voice shakes every time, I know that I was so not alone. And for all of you out there who have had to make tough decisions, and sometimes it is based on who you choose to vote for, right? I mean, give me a break. But they are tough decisions, and we have to be confident enough to stay true to ourselves, or else shame on us as we allow our kids to see that we do not practice what we preach. Since I left ESPN, I started my own show. By the way, who was the first person to hire me? I no longer work with him. Bill Maher. And the Bill Maher Club Random Podcast Network, which has since folded, and I'm on my own, so yes, please like and subscribe, Sage Steele Show. But you talk about diversity of thought. I mean, I could not agree less with anything Bill Maher says. Now listen, he's gotten a little more full of common sense lately. Thank you, Bill, here and there. But overall, he thinks marriage is gross, kids are annoying, and that God doesn't exist. So we are very different people. However, kudos to him for hiring someone as crazy right-wing as me compared to his views, right? I took that like, God bless you. Even though you don't believe in God, God bless you. Like, that's a big deal. That's how we heal as a country. And so that was amazing. And then I left Connecticut, and I'm done here. Then I left Connecticut when my youngest went to college last August. and I sold the house, and I sold everything in it except a couple of things that are important to my children and to me. And I got in my car, and I drove 23 hours, and I had bought during COVID a condo at the beach in Fort Lauderdale, and now I'm full-time in the free state of Florida. And it is, I think back. Oh, by the way, after I moved there, I got a call to go on the campaign trail with Donald Trump and Laura Trump, and I'm wearing hot pink jackets around the country and speaking at rallies with Tulsi Gabbard and on Trump Force One at 5 in the morning of the election, coming back from the last like, what? And I thought to myself as I'm sitting across from Donald Trump, this far away, on his plane, the last 2 stops of his campaign on November 4th and the morning of November 5th, and I got choked up and I thought, what if? What if I had stayed silent? What if I had listened, forget about everybody else, listened to myself and listened to my own fears and listened to the hate and those doubters? Because I got to go participate in that. I got to go on the Monday of the election to Buncombe County, North Carolina, 6 different stops throughout Asheville, North Carolina, the place that had been abandoned by the government after that hurricane, and to go to these people's homes who had nothing, and to just hug them and hold their hand and work with Samaritan's Purse, an incredible Christian organization that helps, everyday people go and they volunteer and they give back and they help rebuild these homes and they just hug people and love on people and bring food. I got to do that. I got to go to the local diner and help flip pancakes for these people who just were grateful to be alive. Like, I got to do that, and I got to be part of history to see people come together and let go of some preconceived notions of certain people who might live at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and do what is best in their minds for the country and for America. And what if? What if we choose to stay silent? We now have learned too many lessons in this country about what happens when we do. The power of prayer is everything. I know that I am now here for a reason, and that is because this big mouth of mine will not be wasted. And the women in sports, Riley Gaines, I was chatting with Riley just yesterday. She is 24 years old. I'm more than twice her age, and that kid teaches me things every day about courage. No excuses, no more living in fear. And when in doubt, ask yourself about the harder right. Help me to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. And we can never, ever again be content with a half-truth because we know the whole truth can be one. God bless.
A little conversation? Thank you. You're making us cry. Let's grab a seat. Let me just say a few different things. One, I don't know how many SportsCenter fans and everything in here. It's still just surreal to me to sit here because again, in college I remember when you came on ESPN and SportsCenter and just hearing your voice in this room with us is a blessing.
I didn't cry when I was on SportsCenter though, only in front of you guys.
That is true. But you were absolutely incredible, and again, I have distinct memories of watching you host the NBA Finals and all of those types of things.
You know how many people say, I grew up watching you on SportsCenter? That is so annoying, Aaron.
So I did not say that. I grew up watching Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen and all those guys. It's in college at that point. But one last thing just for you on all of this. As a Green Bay Packers fan, I do have to say Jay Cutler was my favorite Bears quarterback because nobody was as generous with the football as Smokin' Jay. Anyway, there's a million places to go with your story. I do want to ask, I think for a lot of us, when the women's sports issue popped up, we'd seen the left kind of go crazy through the years. But this one was like, wait, really? You're going to let men play in women's sports? And honestly, the main driver of it felt like the media. A lot of it felt like it was coming from ESPN. Was from, you're really interacting at this highest levels, not just of media, but of corporate America. what was the mind? Were a lot of folks in there even looking around saying, "Hey, this isn't right"? When this started happening, what were those conversations like off camera with folks, and how did you navigate that whole crisis?
Yeah, there were, from what I was told too, with producers, there were meetings about it, and people spoke up, and then they were.
Oops, sorry, that's probably
Me?
No, it's probably me. I'm going to scoot over a little bit. My mic, there we go.
Sorry. About it just doesn't make sense. So there are many common sense people that are still there. I remember when it first happened though, and Leah, well, as Riley says, Will Thomas, I love her. The whole story happened, and she and many girls were forced to change in the locker room with him, etc. And I remember saying, this is becoming a story. Why aren't we covering it? Especially, I hosted the noon Eastern SportsCenter, and it's a 2-hour show. In the second hour, we always had about an 8 to 12-minute segment with Outside the Lines with Jeremy Schaap, who I love. And so he got to dig in and do investigative reporting and all the non-highlight type stories, and that was the perfect place to do it. They always did things like that, and for some reason, they wouldn't touch it. So then I pushed and pushed a little harder, and they said, well, it's on ESPN.com. And I guess it was. I don't know how many pages down. But to me, that's where I really was just so frustrated. And because of the story. And our job is to report the news. Not even give our opinion with that, but what is the news? And oh, by the way, I've been part of ESPN W since its inception in 2010, W for women. And we are now allowing women's spaces to be taken over. Title IX, Billie Jean King on our air, all these women are silent about it. These powerful, strong women. So what happened to 50 plus years of fighting for Title IX? So that's what I kept pushing, and I just was told, we'll get there, or stay in your lane, basically. Yeah. And then it goes into picking your battles, and I knew I was already on thin ice a little bit there. But and remember it was Women's History Month, and they had us actually say on air, who our female hero is. And not all of ours were allowed to air, put it that way. And in general, when certain people went around and said certain names, if it fit here, it was great. If not here, and I chose to stand up for women who were standing up for women sports athletes, and it wasn't allowed to be aired. And finally, when they went on and then did a whole vignette on Leah Thomas and Will Thomas. What should I call him?
So I always call him Will Thomas. Yeah,
it's Will. He's a guy.
Right?
It's Will.
He's a dude.
Remember that khakis that
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The khakis commercial. What was it?
The State Farm. The State Farm.
It's a guy.
It's a guy.
It's a guy.
What are you wearing? Khakis.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm a dude. Yeah.
Anyway, yep. I'll nail that one down next time. We tried. Many of us tried, to no avail. But I will say there are a lot of fighters there. There are a lot of people there who do care and just are fearful.
So I want to ask, because I remember there's an ESPN NFL commentator who's still there today, a guy. What the heck? It was Dan Orlovsky, and he said something about women's sports, and then he came out and apologized afterwards. How do they get to guys like him? What happens behind the scenes when somebody speaks out like that? What is that? And maybe not specifically what happened with him. I don't know what that is, but and honestly, for me, what's frustrating in a situation like that is the message it sends to the rest of the public is, hey, if they can get this powerful person to bend the knee, what can they do to me?
Yeah.
Right? So what happens behind the scenes?
Well, I know that with Dan, it was a little bit more. There was a little bit more to it, and he has very much struggled. He is an incredible human being, and if you remember what happened with Damar Hamlin with the Buffalo Bills, and when he got hurt, and Dan went on air, NFL Live, and he genuinely was praying on live TV. We had never seen that before. He is a strong Christian man, and a wonderful father. He has triplet boys and a little girl. And he's very much struggled with what has happened since then, and there was more to the story. Listen, I mean, quite often it's no different from what happened to me. Mine was just at a higher, louder level. And we talked about this earlier with one of the groups, and I still really struggle with it because I understand the fear. The fear is real. the fear is legitimate. I do think we're changing. We're trending in the right direction now that there's a little bit more leadership in Washington, D.C. for this common sense issue. But there is still fear, and I'm an example of why many people just stay silent. But I look at so many of these big, strong, tough, rich football players who are now on our airwaves and continue to choose to stay silent despite having daughters in those locker rooms, daughters on those fields. Like, apparently they haven't been affected yet. But what's the line? Is it when your neighbor's daughter gets hurt? Is it when yours? Is it like, I don't know their line. But what everyone is failing to realize is that by choosing to stay silent, what is it? Silence is compliance? Mm-hmm. Like, I actually really, really believe that. And they don't understand, or maybe they do, but there's fear that if only they would come together, if only they would band together, if a group of them, 2-3 guys, would come together, more will follow. And shame on women. Amen. I don't mean the women athletes. I don't mean these young girls who are being affected. I mean all these women out there, all of our feminists out there who have pushed and fought. And now, at the most obvious time, for the most common sense issue I remember in decades, they're choosing silence. Shame.
Watching folks like you stand up and stare down Disney, I want to ask, just in your personal story with what you went through with Disney, what was the way, you talked about your parents, how do we as one of the best blessings of being a Christian is the body of Christ and supporting one another. What are the people that came around you in that, and how do they support you? What does helping someone in your circumstance look like? And because again, I know there's people in this room that have experienced similar, like certainly not at the same level, but it's similar pressure inside the work environment.
The number of people who have come up to me, strangers, I can't count. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe more, daily. And it isn't about recognition, because for so long I was walking around with my eyes down on the ground, no eye contact. And that's unacceptable when you're a Steele with a father who's a retired colonel. You make eye contact. And I was afraid that they hated me, that they thought I was this or that, because that's what the internet told me I was. That's what social media said, and I believed it for a long time. So to answer your question, say something. And acknowledge them, and sometimes just a smile. It goes such a long way. I actually think back to the COVID days, and that's what I've missed the most about being in the grocery store. And I don't know how it was here, but in the Northeast, it was pretty legit shut down for a long time. And I just hated being in the grocery store aisles, and I smile a lot, and I say hi to everybody, much to my kids' chagrin. I talk to everybody. I couldn't do any of it. Yep. And I missed seeing people smile. And then I would look, I'm like, okay, if they have wrinkles around their eyes like I do, does that mean they're smiling? Like, the power of smiles, the power of a kind word, especially if you know that somebody's gone through something, and it doesn't even necessarily mean that you agree with them. That's not what that is. It's just the human element. And I was at a live golf tournament, actually it was late last fall, and twice in one day I had 2 men my age, fathers of daughters, come up to me, totally separate, in tears, because they wanted to stand up for their daughters. And they were afraid to, again, and then of course I'm hugging them, and I'm like, okay, wait, if this is your job, okay, wait, maybe do it, like trying to strategize with them. But I realized, and it's so humbling to think that people cared enough about little old me and my little story. I just had this cool job. That's all it was, and had an opinion. Yep. And that's all it was. It's turned into this. So if you see someone that you know has been through it, just say something, smile, wink. Awesome. The most important part, and I never, ever thought I would ever be able to feel something like this. A couple of you here have said it to me too. I have felt every prayer from across the world. It's so humbling, and the emails that I get, the DMs that I get, and I feel bad because I can't answer them all. But I have felt those prayers, because there's no other way I would have been able to walk back in there every day. From the moment of suspension to the settlement of the case was 22 months. Most people, when they sue their company, are already gone. I was still on their airwaves every day, knowing it was, so it's insane. But the kind words and the prayers, and I think that that's what we need more of, and I think we've learned that the last couple of years in general, regardless of your situation, how much prayer can help you and what you're going through, but can help each other. And I'm forever grateful.
Amen. Amen. All right. We're going to wrap here. A few rapid-fire questions. Just, again, I've been holding back all my
Are we going to
questions.
argue about, like, LeBron versus Michael?
No, we're not doing that. No. Because that's not a real debate.
It's not.
Come on.
Go, Michael.
This is, anybody who thinks that is, come on. Call it
Everybody at, like, 40 and up, 45 and up,
Oh, yeah.
it's like Michael Jordan.
There's
all the
like,
kids, I'm
thank you. This is, it's not even... We're common sense people in here anyway.
Obviously.
All right, so just rapid fire. Nicest athlete you worked with through the years?
There's a lot of nice ones. Most recently, it's Stephen Curry.
Stephen Curry. Oh, nice.
Telling
All
you, great kid, great father. Yeah.
And a bad hammy right now, but we'll be praying for that. Funniest athlete that you ever interact, or coworker through the years?
That's two very different humans. Coworker, athlete.
Yep.
My last co-host, Matt Berry.
Okay, yeah.
Incredible, probably the most talented person at that network, along with Reese Davis.
Mm-hmm.
The things that he would say to me in a commercial break with 4 seconds left, right before the light comes back on, just to see, and he's evil for that, but hysterical. And those behind-the-scenes stuff is what I miss the most. I mean, there's so much pressure in that job every minute. I mean, 2 hours live, 5 days a week, and you're going to say something wrong. And he made me laugh, and he kept me calm because I'm like this. The funniest athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, he was disgusting, but he was also funny. Warren Sapp, he's gross.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, but he was funny. Like he told funny jokes, so I shouldn't even. Draymond Green.
Yeah. Okay.
He's funny too.
Gosh.
I mean, I know these are people that you guys hate, but he's funny. I mean, see, I can separate diversity of thought.
That's good. All right. Favorite sporting event that you covered over the years?
I should say the Masters, because every guy is like, you covered the Masters. I'm like, yep, 7 straight years. And I'm good if I don't go back. I'm good. I would say specifically Game 3 of the 2016 NBA Finals.
And 16 was the Cavs year they won.
Warriors, Cavs, LeBron's first year back. Wasn't that 16? Yeah. Game 3 was at the Q in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I love LeBron as an athlete. Like, I respect him in that way. Yeah. And to see what he did for a community, and still does, but to come back and to be there, and we're live on ABC in 90 seconds. And by the way, at that moment, there's no teleprompter. It's all notes. I didn't have a prompter, and my mind went blank, and I forgot everything I was going to say, and I wanted to vomit. And somehow I prayed, is what I did. And I'm like, Lord, I don't know what just happened. All the notes are gone. Please let something come out and let it be smart so I don't get fired. Yeah. And that moment, you couldn't even hear yourself think. It was so loud. And you know what it did? That moment took me back to that 11-year-old kid who had this crazy dream. And in 1983, 84, as an 11-year-old kid, there were no women doing this. There were no women, certainly, who looked like me for many years doing it. Yeah. So that dream was really a pipe dream in many people's eyes. Yeah. And that day, that moment, took me back to being that little girl, like, oh my gosh, you made it. Now, the world blew up a couple years later, but that was a really fun moment.
That's cool. All right, and the last one, funniest or best Trump moment?
Oh my gosh, so many.
Yeah.
I can't repeat some of them.
I get that.
Wait. Okay, this one's okay. I think this one's okay.
Let it go, yeah.
What happens in Cincinnati stays in Cincinnati.
As they say.
Yeah. It was that moment, and it was Trump Force One again, and it was. Do you remember, like, right after the election was over, and it was Trump and RFK and Elon and somebody else, and they were sitting at that table of 4, and they were eating like McDonald's.
And RFK was looking so awkward with a Whopper or a Big Mac in front of him.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
I was in that seat.
Oh.
right across from Donald Trump, the one next to RFK, the window. So Donald Trump always sits in the window, facing forward, which also lets him see the TV, and then that's how he has his iPad and he's DJing the entire flight every time with the volume at 10 for Queen or Sinead O'Connor. He's a very eclectic music taste. Don't even get. But we're sitting there, and he looks at me, and he goes, and I had done his town hall. I mean, I'd been around him a few times, and he looked at me, and he goes, so do you date black guys or white guys? And I was single at the time, and I said, I'm an equal opportunity employer, sir.
Yes.
If you know of anyone, you know where to find me.
That's good.
That's way TMI. But there were some moments, and yesterday I filmed 2 shows out in Scottsdale, one with Rob Schneider, the actor and comedian, and he was incredible, and someone who's just so common sense and made tough choices in Hollywood. You talk about flipping his career upside down.
He's a Christian now. Yeah, right.
He's a practicing Catholic, and he gave me the rosary that he'd been carrying with him since he became a Catholic 2 years ago. He gave that to me yesterday on my show. So that's airing next week. Such a blessing. But also my second show I taped was with Danica Patrick, and I was with Danica Patrick on that plane. And the things that she and I reminisced about yesterday, the topics discussed at that foretop with Donald Trump on our way back to Palm Beach the morning of the election. So cool. And I'll say this. He's a kind, caring man. And I don't know how much he wants everybody to know that, but it's been beautiful to see, beautiful to get to know Lara Trump, the hearts of these people, and to get to be on the ground. And when I was doing the pink jacket Women for Trump thing with Lara and Tulsi Gabbard and all these amazing women, we were, the first day we did it, we were in Atlanta, and we went to a food bank. And do you know that it took 3 different food banks to say yes? Because the first 2 didn't want the food for their community because it was coming from Donald Trump.
Oh my God.
So the people who preach about their communities, by the way, and loving their people, really, this is free food we're trying to give you. So I learned so much, but they didn't stop, and they just kept saying, no, we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going, and did it with kindness and love. So I think it's just a great lesson for all of us that you never judge, never stereotype. Give people a chance. How do they treat you? How do they treat others when the lights aren't on? And I've been blessed enough to witness it. And I'm changed forever. If I never see these people again, I'm good. It was really, really cool to see, and I am grateful for his courage. He does not have to do this. He probably shouldn't. His safety, we've all seen, and we are better for it, but we need to continue to pray for him and everybody in Washington.
Amen. And, well, Sage, you should remember, you are in the home of Vice President J.D. Vance, right? Ohio's own. And
I did his town hall as well. Yeah. And you talk about sitting next to somebody and just feeling dumber. Because, I mean, I can't. He's so smart. And Wednesday I was in Phoenix with Charlie Kirk, again, half my age, and I'm like, my sentences are like slurred compared to his. These brilliant people, brilliant people. But JD, I mean, you've Vivek. I mean, this state.
Oh no, we're in great shape. We produce some high quality folks. Well. Let me pray for you, Sage. I'll pray for the night. We have dessert out there for you all. It's a celebration gala, so please feel free to hang out with us. But actually, before I pray for us, will you join me in thanking Sage Steele?
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Narrative, presented by CCV and produced by Wessler Media. If you found today's episode insightful, leave us a review or rating and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. We're your hosts, Mike Andrews, Aaron Baer, and David Mahan, and we'll see you next time on The Narrative.